it was expected that Christmas would take place at my parents' house. Even after my siblings and I had married, moved, or had children, we knew Christmas meant eating seafood, decorating Christmas cookies, and spending every possible moment at our childhood home in San Diego. Every year, that is, until last year. Around Halloween, my sister Betsy was diagnosed with her third cancer 30 years after her first. We were all shocked and frightened, and our parents flew up to Portland as soon as they could, lending comfort, support, and preparing for what steps would come next. We would circle the wagons, as our dad always said. November was agonizingly slow. We awaited a pre-Thanksgiving surgery, which, when it finally occurred, did not go well. The surgeons were not able to reach the spots in my sister's liver, and her pelvic cavity was bombarded with cancerous matter that would require chemo. "We are not leaving Portland until she's better," our dad promised Dr. Steiner. "We're going to circle the wagons." Faced with this reality of cancer and living with our parents, my sister held it all together courageously, with patience and humor. We talked on the phone nightly, trying to figure out why the hell this was happening to her again. "Betsy, I wish I was there. I don't know what to say." "Sister, what's there to say? I've got cancer again. I'm about to start chemo, and Mom and Dad have moved in. They're following me around the house. They don't want me drinking any wine. They've brought prohibition back to Portland." Wine was keeping the two of us sane at that point. So the fact that she couldn't have a glass in her own home while dealing with all this shit seemed unnecessarily cruel. My job, since cancer number 1, was to be the buffer during uncomfortable moments. "We'll be there soon," I told her. "Don't worry." I was worried. The next few weeks were a blur. I was numbly ordering Christmas gifts from Amazon, baking gingerbread, and fa la line. My attempt to be normal for our 2 daughters was only successful because of their preoccupation with Santa and presents. I just had to make it until the 26th, when we would arrive in Portland. Christmas Eve came, and while I nervously guzzled champagne and wrapped presents, my sister was doing the heavy lifting 1,000 miles away. Literally doing the heavy lifting. A snowstorm hit Portland, and no one in the house was fit to drive, especially our parents. But Betsy was determined to pick up the Christmas dinner, even if her hell was freezing over. 29 days after having kidney and liver surgery, she bundled up, headed to her neighbor's for a shot of tequila for warmth, then trudged through the snow to Safeway. She returned, dragging the 18-pound turkey across the icy streets, amazed at both her fitness and the ridiculousness of this feat. We arrived early on the 26th, ready for a delayed Christmas with sister, my niece, and our parents. The kids opened presents, we ate turkey, sat by the fire, and tried to find normalcy within this abnormal holiday. Over the next few days, our dad grilled us about our every move. It was as if Betsy and I were in high school again. I was expecting him to soon impose a nightly curfew. With no more snow in sight and the sun high and bright, my sister made her move. "We're going to the store. I need a few things," she called to our parents, who were down in their basement living quarters. We barely waited for a reply. I did not need to ask where we were going. I knew we were headed for the Lutz. The Lutz Tavern is the oldest bar in Portland's Woodstock neighborhood. A dank and dark dive bar, it served as our refuge many a day on prior visits to Portland. Whenever we needed an escape, sister and I would claim we were headed to Safeway, going for a walk, or off to Bi-Mart for odds and ends. Instead, we would race to the Lutz for cold beers and pinball, a quick escape from both parents and children alike. At the Lutz, we hung our winter coats, ordered a few Oregon brews, and went straight for our favorite pinball machine, Aerosmith. I don't know what what it was about that machine. The lights, the multi-ball feature, Sweet Emotion playing on repeat. But that was our machine. 2 beers and 8 games later, we were not good at pinball. We returned to my sister's house. This habit continued over the next few days. Betsy desperately needed an escape from her confines, her cancer, and our parents, who were now 6 weeks into their stay. The Lutz would be our buffer. 6 weeks. 6 weeks. 42 days. The Lutz would be our buffer between cancer number 3 and our parents. On my last morning in Portland, our dad approached us in the kitchen. Betsy and I were having coffee and making plans for one more afternoon together. Girls, I'd like us to have a family meeting, the 4 of us, you, Mom, and me. Family meeting? Never in our lives had those 2 words been said together. I have some important things I want to talk over today. Let's say 11 o'clock after everyone is showered and dressed. He headed back down to the basement, and Betsy and I stared at each other in panic. We tiptoed to her bedroom to strategize. What could he want to talk about? Every conversation we had focused on her health, her future, our roles in seeing her through this. Could he have seen us sneaking into the Lutz? It was in close proximity to his favorite store, Buy Mart, where you could buy potting soil, canned goods, and guns, nearly all on the same aisle. Did he discover Sister's stash of wine in her bedroom closet? No, we stored it in her cowboy boots, pretty well hidden. Boot wine, that's what we'd sung to. Boot wine. Or maybe this was to finally tell me I was adopted, a half-baked theory I'd developed. For years, Betsy would refer to Mom and Dad as my mom, my dad, my parents, while telling stories. This happened so often that I would have to interrupt to add, also known as the people who raised me. But none of these seemed likely to be the reason for our first family meeting during my sister's 3rd cancer on my last day of the visit. There was no preparing for the reality of Dad's family meeting. We returned to the dining room at 11 a.m. and sat uncomfortably while our parents got settled. Dad was holding a manila file folder, a pen, and some blank paper. Here we go. So I wanted to share some ideas and information with you that I think will be helpful to all of us, Dad began. He opened the folder and took out a stack of papers. I glanced at the top sheet and saw the title, PTSD, Resiliency and Recovery, Skills for Success and Survival. It also had his name and date. Jesus, this was a copy of a PowerPoint he had given at work. Our family meeting was a PowerPoint. Now, our dad had retired almost a year prior from his role as a psychologist with the military. So my mind was racing with so many thoughts. He saved this presentation for a year? He packed this in his suitcase in late October, knowing it might come in handy? How am I not adopted? For the next 47 minutes, he went through his slides, teaching us about stressors and triggers, how resiliency is built and nurtured, often drawing arrows and diagrams on the colored copies. I could not look at Betsy, sensing her growing frustration. I could only glance at her mom, who just gave a nervous shrug of her shoulders. And here we were at Christmas time, hearing Dad's one last presentation. This was the only way he knew how to deal with cancer, and with us. 22 PowerPoint pages later, he concluded with an off-script, circle the wagons pep talk, and then, any questions? Oh, I had questions. But I would not ask them out loud. How do you think we got this far? We had built our strength in Cancer 1 and tested its mettle through Cancer 2. We were resilient long before our need for boot wine. Our mom remained silent. We all looked to Betsy. I know you're worried, Dad. I'm terrified. But what you're telling me is not news. This is all happening in my body, and I wouldn't be here now without being resilient. Betsy continued on, expressing her determination to get through this on her terms. This was a woman who, cancer and all, carried a frozen turkey through the snow. Somewhat defeated, Dad quietly accepted her statements, then excused himself from the table. When he was out of earshot, our mom thanked us for listening and not losing it, something she would do again and again throughout this past year as Betsy survived both treatment and our family. Sisters! It was barely noon, and our bags were packed, overflowing with Christmas gifts. We still had some time left before my evening flight home. Sister and I had some serious debriefing to do. We got up from the table and glanced at one another. Your dad is nuts, I told her. We grabbed our coats. Betsy uttered our half-truth alibi. We're heading to Bi-Mart to grab a few things. I could hear the quarters jingling in her pocket.
That was vampire.